Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited for another Centering Servingness webinar series, which is our November one and our final one for this year. So we'll be back in 2025 after this. So again, hi everyone. My name is Carla Silva, and I serve as the Director for Hispanic Serving Institution Initiatives at the University of Arizona. And I'm excited that our community today includes colleagues not only from locally here in Tucson where I'm located, but across the state of Arizona as well as across the nation. So thank you again for taking time to be with us today. So I always like to begin by just recognizing and paying honor to the original inhabitants of the land on which the University of Arizona resides on. So the region of Tucson resides on the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the Pasquayaqui tribe. We offer our gratitude in being able to share knowledge on these indigenous lands. So if you've joined us before for Centering Servingness webinar, we talk a lot about the different ways that institutions and people are centering servingness and really living out the mission of being a Hispanic serving institution. Most of the folks that we talk with and, kind of the way that we informed this webinar series is informed by Dr. Gina Garcia's extensive body of work on the concept of servingness. So this webinar series features faculty and staff across the nation again who engage in scholarship and servingness efforts that honor the cultures and lived experiences of our Latine, Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and underrepresented students and communities. The goal of our series is threefold. So one, we like to spotlight current scholarship. So we offer examples of rich ways in which servingness is enacted by faculty and staff. Two, we invite others, both on campus, nationally, and within our community, to learn about and engage in these efforts. And lastly, we're working to build knowledge. So each month, we address the question, what next steps are needed to build institutional capacity around HSI servingness? And as you know, there are hopefully, or maybe this is new, but there are 20 HSIs in the state of Arizona. And through the AZ HSI Consortium, which was launched in 2021, we seek to also strengthen the individual and collective capacity of Arizona HSIs to intentionally support conditions necessary for Latinx student success in Arizona. So I'm extremely honored and excited today for our panel featuring Estrella Mountain Community College. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce Paula Livingston, who will be facilitating today's panel, who will introduce herself as well as the panelists. So again, thank you all for being here, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Paula Livingston, who serves as the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Estrella Mountain Community College.
Thank you so much, Carla, and good afternoon. It's exciting to see so many people joining the webinar, and we're excited to share with you about our experience. I'm actually going to kick it over to my president, Dr. Ray Rivera, who is a co-PI on a grant that is kind of what led to us being involved in some of this work, and give him an opportunity to speak about that, and then we'll highlight our part of the grant and then what we're going to share and talk about today.
Thank you, Paula. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ray Rivera, President of Estrella Mountain Community College. I want to welcome everyone for joining our webinar today and just talk a little bit about the history of where we've been as a college and kind of how we got to this space. And I'm going to turn it over to Paula and the panelists. But just really briefly, since 2001, EMCC, when it first was designated as a Hispanic serving institution, we did a deep dive in terms of trying to figure out what was the focus for the college back 20 years ago, back in 2021. And what we realized right away was that STEM was an emerging field back then, and we were able to get a National Science Foundation grant and really focus on what it meant for the college to be serving the needs of our population, right? And it really became apparent that there needed to be various areas of support, right? And so we developed our STEM Center of Excellence at that point in time. And based on that center, right, we were able to then develop many different programs and opportunities. And so today, Paula and her team are going to talk a little bit of what we're doing currently, right, to engage not only our students, right, in terms of looking at through a servingness lens, but also our community in terms of meeting the STEM workforce demands of the West Valley of Phoenix. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Paula, and I'll have the panelists start working on their presentation. So Paula, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. And I just running through what we're going to do today, we're going to talk to you about a very specific, it's more, I guess, of an industry that we've been working in and what we've been doing here at our college to grow that industry. And you're going to find out here shortly that I have a very comprehensive team, from faculty to workforce development to student affairs, and really in how we approach this from all different aspects of serving students, and especially in serving Hispanic students. I do want to start out by having our panelists all introduce themselves, and then I'm going to give a quick overview of Estrella, just so you have some demographics of our institution, and then a history of the program, because it's been around for a while. We want to just give you that context as we then share. So I'm going to call out the panelists as I see you, and if you'll do an introduction, and then share with those in attendance on our webinar what your role is when you think of our advanced manufacturing and our energy program. So I'm going to start out with the first one I see is Joanne Kingman.
Of course, she would start with me. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Joanne Kingman, and my title is Industry Partners and College Liaison. But my main role is meeting with industry partners in the West Valley of Phoenix, trying to determine what their needs are, and then determining how the college can help. A lot of it has to do with building talent pipelines, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Thank you, Joanne. The next one I see is Kristen Osborne.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's great being here. My name's Kristen Osborne. I am a student services supervisor for Estrella Mountain. I also manage Estrella Mountain's offsite location in Buckeye. So my role is definitely to get students in the door and get them into these programs. Specifically, the programs at this site are the advanced manufacturing programs. So we help reduce those barriers by helping them through the admissions and registration process.
Thank you, Kristen. Next, I see Yvette.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Yvette Rodriguez. I am the school's coordinator for the Quick Start Semiconductor program. My role is a combination of working with the students in the program from their first inquiry of being interested, getting them admitted, getting them through the program, providing some career services. And then I also support the faculty that teach the classes, and then also meeting with our industry partners in the semiconductor industry.
Thank you, Yvette. And then last but not least, Sean.
Hi, my name is Sean Denny. I am the residential faculty member for Automated Industrial Technology, and my main role is obviously to teach in the program, but also to help with selection of adjuncts, development of curriculum, talking with foremans and leaders in industry to make sure that what we're teaching matches what they need, but then also helping guide students into jobs, into career choices, how they go through the classes, a lot of that kind of thing.
Thank you. All right, so you've had a quick introduction to our panelists, and I just want to share with everyone a little bit about Estrella Mountain, and again, as I said, the history of this program specifically. So we are one of 10 within the Maricopa County Community College District. We are the furthest serving West institution, and if you're familiar with Maricopa County, that is one of the growing areas, fastest growing. We're going to see a ton of growth. I think I heard a stat the other day that 50% of the housing permits to build houses are happening over here in the West Valley. And we're seeing a lot of growth in industries because of where we're located and how close we are to the I-10, the 303 corridor, a variety of different transportation infrastructures. So here we are out here way on the west side. We like to jokingly refer to it as East LA if you ever come out here. We have a head count of approximately 9,500 students. We hit 10,000 students right before the pandemic, and we are seeing that students return. So we're happy to see that growth come back. As indicated, we're a Hispanic serving institution. We actually have 58% of our students are Hispanic. 72% of our students attend college part-time. And so each of you understands the challenges of part-time students and what that means that they're doing outside of work as far as jobs and supporting their families. With 60% of our students are female. 59% of our students are designated as first-generation students. And then an interesting data point, we're finding that fewer of our students are looking to actually transfer. We're seeing an increase of students coming to us for what we might label as workforce training. So right now it's about 50, 49, 51, but very, very close to that 50%, but certainly a little bit of a decline. And we're seeing that trending across higher ed. And then lastly, 40% of our students are Pell eligible. So that speaks to the financial needs of our students. And I share those demographics with you because they're all going to play a part when we talk about some of the programs that we've worked with industry to develop. And we'll talk about how we thought intentionally about those programs and where we went from where we started and where we are to today. So let me give you that brief history. So this started before I was even here. I think Kristen may be our longest standing employee who's been a partner of this, but back in 2015 or 2016, out of a grant, it was a TACT grant, Get Into Energy, we started a partnership with Palo Verde Generating Station to train maintenance technicians to work in the generating plant. And it was a wonderful partnership, started here on our main campus in Avondale. And then after that, we moved to a partnership with WestMech. WestMech is a career and technical education district serving the West Valley. And we partnered with them and we actually moved on site with them. And so this program, as you heard referenced to offsite or a different location, our manufacturing program is actually located on a WestMech campus, meaning that students can go and take the high school class and the high school program and earn some credits through the dual enrollment partnership. And then they can move right on into their associate's degree, certificate with Estrella Mountain, and they don't have to leave the facility. It's all right there together. And that's been a great partnership to be able to do that. So thinking back, Palo Verde, WestMech, and Estrella Mountain really launched something that was really innovative and new in this space of workforce training. And Joanne Kingman was involved in really building that partnership and developing the curriculum and the relationships with Palo Verde in that. So we'll jump to her in here a minute to talk about that. And then probably like 5 years ago, it feels like just yesterday, but it was probably 5 years ago, we started to notice that the manufacturing was growing in our area. And we started to recognize that many of the skills that we were training through our energy program were very similar to the technician skills that were needed in many of the distribution, logistics, and manufacturing facilities. And so through some work, I know I saw someone here from Pima Community College. At the time, the chancellors of the 3 college districts, that's Maricopa, Central Arizona, and Pima, signed a proclamation, a commitment to work together to address the advanced manufacturing workforce needs along the I-10 corridor. So stretching from Maricopa down to Tucson and then out to other places. And that was known at the time as the Arizona Advanced Technology Corridor. It later moved to the Arizona Advanced Technology Network. And through that, we worked together as a group. We brought in 75 plus industry partners and held quite a convening at Central Arizona where we met to understand what is the skill set of this new advanced manufacturing. I think at the time we were talking Industry 4.0. I think we're probably much past that into Industry 5, 6, and 7.0, but we're rapidly seeing advancements in this space of advanced manufacturing and recognizing that we needed to respond to that. So out of that, we developed a curriculum called the Automated Industrial Technologies Curriculum. And part of the commitment of the chancellors was that curriculum would be developed to be statewide curriculum so that a student taking AIT classes at Pima and a student taking AIT classes at Estrella would be getting very similar, if not the same content. Obviously, the experience can always be a little bit different, but really wanting to make it as easy as possible to build a really strong and talented workforce pipeline for the entire state of Arizona. So it was much larger than just Maricopa County, much larger than Estrella. So Estrella and Mesa Community Colleges from Maricopa were the two sister colleges to be involved in that work. And we launched that in fall of, well, I won't even try to remember the date because I'll probably get it wrong. A few years ago, we launched that. So automated industrial technologies. And we were really crafting that very close in hand with our industry partners to make sure we had the right competencies and the right experiences for students. Shortly after that, suddenly, I'm sure many of you know of some rather large investments in the state of Arizona in the space of semiconductor manufacturing, specifically Intel and TSMC making really large investments in the state of Arizona. So we were contacted by our industry partners to look at, could we build some manufacturing technician programs to serve this increase of chips technology and the manufacturing that was going to happen in that space. And, we went back and we looked at that AIT curriculum, and we found that we'd done a pretty good job of creating a very universal technician program. So we were able to start with that curriculum and to add on components. And this is where we are in the busy part right now, is in dealing with more of the semiconductor industry. We're seeing increases in battery storage, again, a lot of other manufacturing opportunities. And we're just, I think, really looking back how important the industry partners were in helping us to establish that curriculum so that we could easily adjust. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the flexibility of it. But so in launching programs to serve Intel and TSMC, we launched what was known as the Semiconductor Quick Start Training Program. And that's where Yvette has been spending most, if not all, of her time is in that. And that is a 10-day quick start training, as it's called, where students can come in. They come for several hours, 40 hours, I believe, to get through this quick start training. What it does is it prepares students for entry-level positions in some of the semiconductor manufacturing facilities. And huge success out of that. We had incredible demand from students. This is a big industry to get into, and the opportunities within this industry were big. And so we saw a great deal of demand. We'll have Yvette, we'll talk about some of the partnerships within that. But then we ran that for about a year, maybe close to 2 years at this point in time. And we've seen success with getting students through that program and into facilities. And even that has transformed in that little period of time. And there was just a recent announcement from our governor regarding a registered technician apprenticeship program with TSMC. And Estrella is certainly excited to be a part of that program and to have the opportunity to be involved in getting these programs to our community, to the communities that we serve. So we're excited about that and to see where this goes. And so I wanted you to have a general overview of our program as we talk about some of the specific things, but specifically as we talk about being a Hispanic serving institution. And I mentioned at the beginning our thoughtfulness and our intentionality behind focusing in on these programs and recognizing what was happening and where the opportunities were going to be. From my perspective, I see this as a responsibility that we have to ensure that we have programs that are leading to high demand, high wage, high skilled STEM workforce opportunities. And so really investing in this. And so what we want to talk about is, what were some successes in doing this? How important were the industry partnerships? How important was the curriculum? And certainly, as the description shared, a very candid conversation that, it's not all rosy. There are certainly challenges in working in this space. So I'm going to have each of the panelists describe a little bit from their perspective, because they each have a different perspective and a different engagement in this work. And certainly if there's questions as we go, we want to try to answer those questions as they come up. We've got someone who will be monitoring the Q&A and the chat, so feel free to ask questions. We really want it to be a candid conversation. So I'm going to start out by going to Joanne. So Joanne has a very interesting role. As I mentioned, she started with us under our TACT grant through the Department of Labor and working with Palo Verde. She's worked through other Department of Labor IRAM grants with us. And then she took some time and went and worked in industry. So I'm going to have her tell her story, her experience, and then I've asked her to talk about from an industry perspective and from her role in developing these relationships. What are some of the successes and challenges that she's seen in her role, and what might be some helpful ways to help other colleges or universities that are interested in doing programs like this. So Joanne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like you to know that I'm a native Tucsonan. I graduated from the U of A and also went to Pima College. Go Pima, go U of A. And I am a first generation college student, so I understand some of the challenges for our students, but I also understand some of the challenges with industry as well. I think I'm going to start by just sharing a couple of best practices that we learned with our partnership with Palo Verde Generating Station. And really, the grant that Paula talked about with the Department of Labor was a $13 million grant that was actually statewide. There were several colleges involved, including Estrella, Chandler Gilbert, Pima College, Yavapai, and Northland Pioneer. And some of the things that we learned, I think, over working at that, I think that grant was about a 5-year grant, but we learned that, sometimes we can't just recruit students and place them in a class. We have to sometimes look back and see what their background was, what opportunities they had or didn't have. And we learned that sticking them in an electrical class with AC/DC theory probably wasn't the best thing to do if maybe they were young or even re-careering and didn't have or didn't remember how to do some of the math concepts, algebra, some of those things. So we started developing what we call boot camps. The boot camps were designed to refresh students with certain math concepts. There was also boot camps that focused on employability skills and different aspects of what to expect within the energy industry. And I think that was one of the reasons that we were successful. We really prepared students for what they were going to encounter. The other thing was we had a designated navigator or student services person that worked with these students. And so they were very well versed in the programs. They were very tied into industry, so they could speak very easily about the jobs that students might be encountering or applying for. So I think those are really important to highlight because I feel like those were really, very, very, very successful. Now, from an industry standpoint, I worked in the energy industry for Tucson Electric Power for 5 years as their learning and development director. And I think from the aspect of industry, I think what we learned is, we wanted interns coming in to our apprenticeship programs, but we were setting ourselves up for failure because we found that a lot of the assessment tests and physical tests that we were administering could have certain biases. And so we weren't getting the diverse students coming into industry. And so we had to take a step back and look at our assessments and some of the barriers that were really self-imposed by the industry and revamp some of those. We worked closely with Pima College and recruitment for our internship programs because it really was a stepping stone into high-skilled, high-paying job with the energy industry. So those are some of the key things I wanted to share. Is there anything else, Paula, that I didn't touch on that you'd like me to share or elaborate on?
No, I think that's a great overview. I think one of the questions, and you or other panelists, please jump in and answer this, but as a college, as we go to work, go to reach out and work with industry, right? We sometimes speak different language. We speak higher ed and they speak industry, and those two things don't always align. And so we've certainly learned as a community college how to be better at engaging with industry in that way. So I guess just some thoughts from, since you've had both hats on, right? What are some things that higher ed, if I was a new college or university interested in partnering with industry, what might be some ways to reach out and to start those conversations?
Well, I think that, in my current position, because I am an industry liaison with the college, I think, the first meeting that I ever have with industry is kind of determining what it is that they actually do. Because sometimes industry comes to us and I have to actually just sit down and say, I don't have any idea what skills are needed, what exactly you're doing. Because a lot of times they want us to build curriculum around what is needed with the industry partners. And we can't build that many programs. We have to really understand what it is that they're doing, and they have to understand what the college's limitations are. They also have to understand our acronyms, and we need a glossary, but that's all the wax. But I think sitting down and trying to understand each other, I think people think, well, you can build this program and the college can put students in us and then just kind of feed us our talent pipeline. And it really doesn't work that way. So I really try to do a needs assessment with industry, trying to better understand what their goals are, what their hiring process is, and really from the basics, like what type of resume are you looking for? What type of skill sets? What are the competencies? Can I see a job description? Can I better understand your industry? We are trying to really engage students in some of our programs now with industry in the very first semester by even going out and doing field trips. Just to see what it is they're doing. It really is hard to recruit, students and say, hey, do you want to be in the advanced manufacturing sector? And they really don't understand what that means. They're imagining, well, my grandpa worked in a manufacturing company and it seemed kind of boring. Things have changed so much. Now we're talking about robotics and all sorts of automated features. So really just trying to understand each other and then work together to come to a common goal, I think, is probably the easiest way to put that, and really just trying to build that partnership. I know lately we have been meeting with industry partners, and I think they come in with the idea of how many students do you have that know electrical and mechanical, PLCs, and robotics? And can you just give me those students? And I just want to fill them in these positions. And so Sean and I kind of have buddied up and started this new dialogue with a true partnership is, let's help each other. Let's see what, we might need some adjunct faculty. Do you have maybe some folks in your area who are interested in becoming adjunct faculty? Are you interested in, providing equipment or donating equipment? And so we have to look at it as a partnership anymore. We have companies now that are funding some of our summer camps where we're trying to get young, diverse groups of, even third, fourth, fifth graders into our college and understand more about STEM. And some of our partners are stepping up, especially Paul Birdie. They've been great in funding some of those camps. So really we give examples of a partnership, a true partnership, what that looks like. And so I think that conversation has gone very, very well. I think sometimes they just don't know what to ask and we don't know what to ask. And so now I'm just becoming very forward and just asking, you just have to make the ask.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I certainly, as I reflect on the conversations, is don't be afraid to ask, because it really
Right.
is a true partnership in that. Sean, I see you have your hand up.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I just going to add, like the partnership that, well, all of us really have is pretty key to this. So Joanne uses me as that go-between between industry and education. So you mentioned there's two different languages, and I'm lucky enough to have been in both of them. And so a lot of times she'll use me to explain what we're doing on the education side from an industry standpoint, or field questions about what we're really teaching. And so being able to go into these companies and say, hey, here's what we do and why we do it, but then also listen to them and adjust. Just recently, we added a bunch of micro certificates because a lot of our industry leaders were saying we need to be able to get them in pretty quickly, get them skilled up, and then be able to have them have a certificate. And so we were able to work that out with everybody on this team, really, to be able to create these smaller chunks of learning for our industry as they needed it. So I think just that partnership of working with everybody in your space, and then with our the other, I think, part that's important with our instructors is they're all industry experts. We don't have people that took it in theory. All of our instructors currently are, except for me, currently working in the industry, and then they come in and adjunct for us on for a class or two. And so if there's somebody teaching VFDs or if there's somebody teaching ACDC, they're literally doing that day to day and coming in and sharing with the students, which creates a whole nother conversation and ability for them to move in and find out what the barriers are and understand the industry.
Thanks, Sean. I think you already answered some of the questions that I was hoping from a faculty perspective, right? And dealing with curriculum and changing curriculum. And we know that in higher ed, sometimes that can be a rigorous process and a time sensitive but timely process to get through that. So you mentioned one of the key things that I wanted to really kind of zero in on is that and we didn't learn this right out the gate. I think we learned this a little bit later on, is the tapping into the industry partners and the pool for adjuncts to teach in the program, or part-time employees from the, sorry, part-time faculty for us, employees from the industry partner. So Sean, talk a little bit about, from a faculty role, you said some of it. So if there's other things that you want to add of, maintaining that curriculum and how important that industry partner is for the relevancy and all of that, the components from a faculty side.
Sure. So I didn't mean to jump the gun on you. It seemed to tie in so nicely. So I think one of the things we talk about a lot is that experience in the industry is real hands-on years of experience in the industry is almost like a master's degree. They know more about the subject and how it works than somebody who went and studied it for a dozen years. And so when we go to companies, the first thing I always ask them is, do you have anybody that would be interested in coming in and giving back to the community by being an adjunct? For most of them, the time and the money and those things don't matter to them as much. They have to have a reason and a value. And when we tell them, hey, you will see all of our students, you will work with all of our students, you'll be able to give back a little bit, we are able to bring some of these professionals to come in and teach a class or two. Luckily, we teach one class a night, so we don't have to take a whole lot of their time. They can teach one class or two classes a week and only give up 2 nights, which is a lot, but a lot of them are willing to do it because they like working with the students. They see what's out there. They're able to communicate, and then they're able to go back to their industry and carry the message that we've been telling them is, if we send you students and you're not ready to mentor them and walk, especially with Gen Z, and walk alongside with them and do some of these things inside your company, your return on investment won't be what you want it to be, because they want to feel valued and part of the team. And we talk about what that looks like. But the instructors are such a key part of that. Going to them constantly, being able to talk to them about what they're seeing in industry, and having them come in and pop in with curriculum and add things, it's priceless.
Thank you, Sean. So I want to jump now a little bit and talk about, from those who are working more directly with the students outside of the classroom. So Yvette, I want to go to you. So Yvette came on as a career student navigator for us for our Semi-Co Quick Start training program. And she's played just a really important role in all of that. So I want to have her share from her role as a navigator, and she's working more closely with the students, right? But in partnering with industry and sitting in on a lot of industry conversations, what are we learning about how we're preparing these students? And I know she's probably got some data points if she wants to fit those in there of how we've seen success in this. So Yvette, I'm going to turn it over to you to just kind of talk about the Quick Start, highlight some of the industry, especially like the commitment from our industry partners in the hiring and the preparing students to be ready for that.
Yes, absolutely. So to date, we've actually had 25 separate cohorts for the boot camp. And that includes 312 students. We've had a 95% successful completion rate, so a good majority of the students are completing the program. And we actually have a very high Latino and Hispanic population. 46% of the students going through the program are identify as Hispanic or Latino. And we also have 55% of the students identifying as first generation students. So, definitely those numbers do align with, EMCC as an HSI as a whole. So it's really amazing that, we have a good number of students who are, kind of taking in and stepping into this program. One of the, just kind of barriers that we kind of identified early on is that because the program is open to the full community, some students were coming in and needing additional support with some of the career services. So like we've had students who came in and maybe hadn't updated their resume, and some folks frankly had been a decade. Some students, you know, had been at their previous roles for so long, they hadn't prepared for an interview in years. Some students had never researched a company. So something that we did early on is we began implementing workshops for every cohort, specifically resume interview prep. And one of the really neat features that we were able to do is because we were meeting with TSMC weekly and just collecting data and just feedback from them, we've been able to continuously tailor those workshops specific for those students. And so that's really just been invaluable, being able to get, you know, just that immediate feedback, consistent feedback from industry, and to continue tailoring that. And so, you know, fast forward, the students that are, you know, hey, they're in the program this second year. I mean, they've, you know, are getting those workshops that have now been revamped just continuously over that time. And then, as you know, it was mentioned, our adjuncts that actually teach the program, they're all industry professionals. They're all industry professionals. One thing that I just make sure that the students are aware of is, you know, hey, take advantage. These are individuals who are already connected in the field. They're working in the field. They're very eager and passionate about giving back to the students, and, you know, kind of helping them already build that network with individuals, professionals in the field. We've had one of our biggest partner out here out in the West Valley is TSMC. And one thing that Paula actually was able to do as part of the program is guarantee a first interview for all of our successful completers throughout the program, which has just really been amazing. You know, that guarantees that the students who've gone through the program, they are guaranteed to, you know, go ahead and have that time with TSMC and just make that first impression, you know, to potentially get into those roles. TSMC has also been working with us, you know, throughout the program to host information sessions, just depending on what their schedule allows. Sometimes it's been in person, sometimes it's been virtual. They've also been able to attend some of the career workshops and, you know, just different events that we've been able to hold both at our West Mex site and our main campus in Avondale. And so, you know, we work just very closely, you know, just kind of balancing both the industry needs and, you know, tailoring our resources to what the students need as well. And so, you know, implementing those additional resources, we've definitely seen, you know, a lot of benefits to the students going through the program.
Thank you, Yvette. And yes, you heard her right. We met with TSMC weekly for, I feel like it was a couple of years that we did that. But, and we've had, as you listen to the data points that Yvette shared, we've had success with that program, but it certainly has not gone perfect. That we've hit bumps along the way. We had to go back to the drawing board. We had to work through hiccups. Specifically, I think working with TSMC, we had to do a lot of just that, communicating the differences of what we were talking about and what they were talking about as far as credentials or skills or experiences, right? And just helping them to almost even learn, like, what is it like to build a workforce over here versus what they were used to in Taiwan. And so really overcoming some of those barriers in that partnership. But they were patient with us and we were patient with them, because I think out the gate, we were all super excited about this. And you've heard numbers about what that's going to mean for the workforce, but nothing ever goes according to plan. And it certainly didn't roll out in the way that we anticipated a little bit. But, you know, that meeting with them and our commitment to meet them and meet them where they were and to really talk through that, I believe is one of the reasons that we are now into that registered apprenticeship program with them, and that they came to us seeing our ability to be flexible and to be responsive. And those are not always the easiest things to do in higher ed as we go through curriculum. So I want to jump over now to Kristen, who has been actually with this program the longest, I think. And she's held a couple of different positions, but she works super close with all students. So while Yvette is working more closely with our semiconductor and the quick start and the needs there, Kristen works with all of our students. So when we think of the needs of a Hispanic serving institution and the students who attend here, Kristen is most often the one who sees that firsthand. So, Kristen, I would love for you to jump on and talk a little bit about in the time that you've been with the program and as you've seen it evolve and you've seen the partnership evolve, from your perspective, what have we learned in serving students and what have we learned? How have we learned to better partner with industry to successfully serve our students?
Thank you, Paula. I have been with this program for probably, I think, about 13 years now. It's been with energy specifically. So I did begin with the energy program in 2011 as an advising capacity and also program coordinator capacity. So I did work with industry partners as well as directly with the students. In 2012, 2013 is when Estrella opened this program to the public. So before that, it was a closed population that was just for one of our industry partners, APS Palo Verde. And then after that, we opened it up to the general population, which then expanded the type of student that I was working with. I was no longer working with somebody who had already been hired, who was working out in industry. I was now working with students from all different types of backgrounds who wanted to get these positions, who wanted to work in this industry. Sean did talk about the impact of having instructors from industry teach in these courses and these programs and what that does for our students. And I did get to watch that firsthand when we did have individuals from industry come in and teach these classes, because they were mentors for these students who were nervous about where their careers were going to go, what their education was going to look like. And to be honest, the idea of having a degree or education in this field was not something that was really talked about before 2011, 2010, so it wasn't really something that students thought was possible. So now we're talking with two students about not only can you get this associate degree, but oh, hey, this transfers into a university and you could get a bachelor's degree as well. And that opens up a huge opportunity. So I have worked with students. One of my key points that me and my staff, we take away is we always, Paula kind of touched on this too with the industry partners, we meet them where they are. Every student, you meet them where they are. You don't assume what they know. You don't assume what they have. And I just found, because each student is very different, that offering the same amount of information, offering the same amount of resources to every student gives every student more of an equal opportunity within the program. We are dealing with a lot of first year or first generation students who don't have anybody to guide them through the process of even admitting themselves to a college. And we, as the college, we have a jargon or language that is so foreign to anybody outside of us that getting a student in the door can be really intimidating. So not only do we just assume the student doesn't know anything and we just go in with a baseline for every student, but we walk them through the process. We have also met with the industry partners and have also offered to walk any of their employees through the process, because education in this field, going back to school, can be really, really intimidating. So I would say that's something that I have learned over my time is everybody's a little different. Some people are going to tell you what they need. Some people are not going to tell you what they need. So you just need to assume they need everything. Everyone needs everything and give them everything. And then whatever they decide that they want to use is what they decide they want to use. One of the more common themes that I see are students who are really nervous about passing classes. More students choose this industry because they feel like they're not a traditional college student. They need to get into a job more quickly in order to support their families. So they are, working, but it may not be a job that is one that they want to continue with or one that is sustainable for them. So there's a lot of nerves and anxiety that surrounds how successful they can be in the classroom versus, getting into that job. So one of the things that we offer to them is, one, I sit with students, I give them an hour of my time. Every student, I automatically block an hour. It's not possible for everybody to do that at all times, but that's just something that has worked for our team, just in case they need that hour to sit and talk about some of the challenges that they have. Two, I have become very well versed, and so has my team, on the services that Estrella Mountain offers as a whole for students. We have robust support when it comes to mental health, when it comes to financial support. We've had students come tell us that they have food insecurity, so we refer them to food pantry, or we've had students come tell us that their car broke down, and we're able to help them get scholarships that can help cover some of those costs for them. And these are students that, would just be so extremely nervous to reach out to anybody for help, but creating that rapport, that relationship with them helps them feel a lot more comfortable. So it's been a success in that sense. Helping industry, because I don't work with industry as much as Joanne, Yvette, or Paula do, but I do still work with them when it comes to admissions, and we do a lot of third-party billing. So it's a lot of communication with them about, hey, this is some of the challenges your students may be facing in these classes. Can they get release time to come, get the support? So I help support the student in that aspect and help kind of firm up that partnership with Estrella and that communication between Estrella and the partner in that aspect. So Joanne and Paula all go out there, Yvette, they get those partnerships, and it's my job to make us continue to look good after they do that. So, and it's been great. It's been great. So it's having the students, a lot of these partners that we have, like TSMC, SRP, APS, they do have apprentices that come through our programs. I always encourage students who are not an apprentice, who are a general population student, to make friends with those students or talk to those students so that they can get an idea of how to apply, what the culture's like at those companies. Do they like their jobs, and how they and get tips and tricks on how to get in. So some students take me up on that. Others think I'm silly when I say that. But it seems to work. So it's been great the last 13 years doing this. I hope that I have many more. So it's been wonderful.
Thank you, Kristen. And I want to reiterate. So, I pulled together this really diverse group of people who have been involved in this work. And even though, Kristen in her position reports up through our student affairs side of the house, I can think of multiple industry meetings that we went to where Kristen came right along with us, because I knew there were going to be questions about things that she would be the expert on. And so when she talks about the knowledge base and making sure that her team understands the admissions process, but also understands industry at the same time on some level, and then is connecting students with the resources that are here on the main campus. She's really been an integral part to the team, and really in thinking holistically about serving this. And I recognize that we don't have that luxury and that structure always in all of our programs to have such a dedicated student affairs person working with the program. So that's it's a big part of our team, and I think the success of the team. So I know we're getting about 10 minutes out, and I want to leave some time for questions, but I think really quick. So now that the whole panel has kind of heard what everyone has said, I always like to circle back around. And I guess the last question I would ask for the whole panel to share is, what would you say if you were talking to yourself when you started in this program? Don't you hate these questions, right? So back 13 years ago or 5 years ago, or, what would be one piece of advice if we were thinking about an institution that was starting out and thinking about doing this, right? So think back to your career and what you've learned in this. What would be one little tidbit of advice that you might give to a colleague? And I'm going to give them a second to think about that, because I'm putting them on the spot a little bit. But, I think as an institution, we would be thrilled to meet with any institution who is interested in doing this and talk about, we've gone and you've heard a lot about securing grant funds to make this happen. We've been really resourceful in doing that. Partnerships has been a huge part that's led to equipment being donated, adjunct faculty to teach. So, we'd be happy to sit down, mentor, provide insight, or answer questions specifically with anyone one-on-one. But I'm going to throw it out there for the group. to give us one quick piece of advice that you might give to an institution, and then we'll see if there's any questions in the chat. And I see Kristen's got her hand up, so she's first.
I would just say always expect change. Industry is going to change, which means you're going to have to change your program. Help the students expect that as well. And then if you are working with the student services team get really used to the programs and the way things are done, because a lot of those degrees don't change very often, but in this industry, it does. And it has to stay relevant. So just always expect that change and anticipate that change and have a plan for when that change happens.
Sean, I see your hand.
I think I would just tell myself to remember that we're here to serve students first and foremost. That in everything we do, it gets crazy sometimes with partners and curriculum and all the stuff that goes around that. But in the end, I think the question I try to ask myself when we're doing this is, how does this serve our students? How does this make them better? How does this equip them? What do we need to do to make them successful? I think we got to keep that very, very front and center at all times. It's crazy to even say this, but it can get off center when you're doing other things. But just remembering, hey, I'm a little off center. Let's bring this back to the students.
Thank you, Sean.
I guess I can go next. My hand's not up, but I'll go. I think the main thing, Sean, is correct, that we have to remember students come first. But I think really in our roles, it's our job to prepare students the best we can to be successful. And the only way to do that is to better understand the expectations of industry. So really think having about those candid conversations with industry and really understanding what it is that they do, because it is ever changing. I'm always trying to keep abreast of the next thing that's going to change, but it's very difficult. So I do a lot of reading and research, but really just preparing those students the best we can and educating industry on expectations of the college, and so that it's a win-win for both.
Thank you, Joanne. We've had some great nuggets. Yvette, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add, and this kind of ties a little bit into what you said, Paula, is just not being afraid to kind of ask for help, because the reality is that there's just so much, just cross-functional work that goes on, even with us, being under workforce, academic affairs. I mean, we have Kristen, like that is student affairs. There's so much of our work that ties into one another. And so, for myself coming into this role, coming from a background of student affairs, and just having to learn some new things, I was very, very pleasantly, just surprised and very grateful that there are so many individuals that are willing to help you. You just have to ask. So like Paula said, definitely take advantage of, being able to ask those individuals those questions, for, if they've already been in those, spaces that you're looking to get into. Folks are very, happy to give back and lend that helping hand that, was lended to us.
Thank you, Yvette. And thank you to all of our panelists. I appreciate you being here and sharing. I think you've given a really robust and comprehensive perspective of a program such as this, which is wonderful to have. And we're super happy that we have these types of programs for our students. But it does take everyone really rolling up their sleeves and being a part of it. So I'm going to kick it back to Carla.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here and taking time out of your day to serve on this panel so that folks could learn a little bit more about what's going on at your institution and the work that's being done. So we're excited to be able to host you all. So Paula, I have kind of a closing question for you. And so I'm going to ask Paula what we ask many of our facilitators, and of course to you, to Dr. Rivera, but our question for both of you is, what next steps are needed to build institutional capacity around HSI servingness?
I'm going to go first, but I think, like you've heard, that it takes really a lot of people being committed to the goal behind it, right? Like, one of us is not going to be able to do this alone. So when we think of our partner Hispanic serving institutions, right? Like just being here on this webinar and sharing our secrets and how we've been able to see success, but also to pull the covers back and show where it hasn't been successful, right? So I think just sharing that work and being willing to recognize that it's about the Sean said it, it's really focused on students. And that really then leads itself back to it's about the communities, the surrounding communities that we serve. So I think just being willing to come together and to collaborate around a really great goal that's good for everyone.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that, Carla, and because Paula had a great response, is that it's certainly you see all the work that is required for us to have success within Estrella. And so I think what you're going to start seeing amongst all the HSIs, particularly in the West Valley with us in Glendale, is to try to think about how can we leverage our resources and respond to industry needs from a regional perspective. And so it just allows us to probably be more diversified in the sense of being able to address many different fields as opposed to just trying to be competitive and trying to be comprehensive, which we can no longer be in this in higher ed at this point in time. So I think that'll be the next step for our institution is how do we approach this regionally and replicate what we're doing here through these various programs? Because I think it shows that we've been successful, and now we just got to figure out how can we scale this in a regional manner that makes sense for for the entire West Valley.
Absolutely. I love both those answers of scaling and working collaboratively with folks across not just your institution, the West Valley, and, some point probably the state and nationally as well. So it's awesome to see that y'all are doing that work. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We know you live busy lives, so we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Again, please help me in thanking our wonderful panelists and facilitators today who modeled for us what authentic engagement with not only community partners, but with students, faculty, and staff should look like. So again, this is our last webinar for this year. So we'll be back next year on January 16th of 2025 at 1 p.m. Arizona time again. This time we'll be joined by Dr. Heather Hager and the Reed's Postdoctoral Fellows for their webinar on improving STEM education at HSIs through educational research and assessment. So again, we are very grateful that you took some time to be with us, and we will see you next year. Thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.